Air. Yep.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, this is Sherry Sims, founder of Black Career Women's Network, and thank you for tuning in for another career conversation. Tonight, we have our special guest, which is Jacqueline Timmons. She is a financial behaviorist with her company, which is Sterling Investment Management. Did I say that right, Jacqueline? Jacquette, did I say that right?
I was about to say, you said the company right, but not the name. It's Jacquette.
I have to make sure I say it right, Jacquette. I just love her name. Don't you love her name, guys? Again, welcome to another career conversation. And tonight, Jacquette is going to be talking about Jacquettes. I'm going to be saying it just like that all night, too. She's going to be talking about a very great subject. And I am so excited about this because I know I'm going to learn a few things from this event as well, because money is always a soft subject for people, right? Or a soft spot or a sweet spot for some people. So tonight, Jacquette is going to be talking about financial success doesn't start in your wallet. But before we do that, let me share some things about Jacquette before I give her a formal introduction. She actually is in New York City. She is a financial behaviorist. And I can't find the rest of my information. I don't know where it went to. Here we go. And as I pull it up, so hold on, you guys. I lost my place here. Here we go. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for my information to share about Jacquette, for those of you all who are not a member of BCWN, please join the network at bcwnetwork.com. And you can register to become a member. If you'd like to also find out about when we have our career conversations, you can also join our emailing list as well at bcwnetwork.com. And it says, please sign up for our career notification of our events. One of the things about Jacquette that I wanted to share with you guys is that, money choices don't always reflect the smart choices that you make in other areas of your life. So if you have a nagging feeling, or there's something that you should do, or even if your finances are not rock solid and you're wanting some answers about that, or if you let less money slip through your hands and you actually enjoy managing your money, then Jacquette's going to be able to help you with those things. It's pretty simple, profound tools that she's going to be sharing with you tonight to really help you reveal more about how you currently, deal with your money, whether it's spending habits emotionally, mentally, whatever those things may be. But she's going to be sharing some of those tips and tools with us tonight in terms of how to be able to have control with that. So with further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Jacquette go ahead and give herself an introduction.
Hi, Sherry. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me be here this evening. And I think, one of the few things that I want people to walk away with is just really understanding that I totally geek out about increasing people's financial self-awareness. I am totally fascinated by human behavior, and by human behavior in the context of money in particular. And what started that was probably a lot of things a long time ago, but certainly the stock market crash of 1987. That's what really put me on this path of really wanting to understand better and much more deeply what is that intersection when we look at psychology, emotions, and money. Mm-hmm. So in addition to geeking out about all that kind of stuff, I also really want to make money fun, because far too often for many people, it's the thing that you dread. It's the thing that causes a great deal of angst. And I think if we are able to shift our perspective and shift how we engage with money, we will actually not only have a better experience of it, but also make better choices about it. Because if you think about any other area of your life, when you show up and you're excited, you have a clearer head than when you show up and you're like, oh, I really don't want to do this. So that would be another thing. The other thing is everything that I do, because of the fact that my filter is always integrating the psychology and the emotions of money, I'm always going beyond the numbers. And I'm really interested in getting people to think differently and a little bit more deeply about their relationship with money. So I'm looking forward to us diving into all of that tonight.
Awesome. So I think let's start with the first question I want to talk about is that learning simple, practical tools that really can create the framework to manage the emotions of money. And starting with that, I think, and I'll just kind of give you a personal tidbit for me. And one of the things is that I
Okay.
always get anxiety around, if I start paying the bills, how much is going to be left to maintain until the next payday, right? So what are some of the things that really should be thought about doing differently instead of having anxiety about paying the bills and what's left to be able to make it through for those who are living paycheck to paycheck, or maybe looking at, I need a certain amount of money to that I just want to be able to allot to have until that next cycle, because I know the philosophy is save some, spend some, that type of thing. What are some of the emotional things that come from that?
Well, you know what? Actually, if we can just kind of rewind and take a step back before I answer that question directly. And for everyone that's either listening live or listening to the replay, just indulge me with this little bit of an exercise. So, Sherry, let me ask you this. Did you look in a mirror today?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So, probably very few days go by without you looking in the mirror, right? And what's going on when you look in the mirror?
Do I really have to answer that one? It's kind of personal.
Okay. Well, no, but that's actually, that response is really great. So one thing that's going on when you look in the mirror is that it's doing nothing more than reflecting back to you what it sees, right?
Right.
In addition to that, though, you've got this thought cloud. And in that thought cloud are whatever the thoughts that came up for you when you're like, do I really have to answer that? That's rather personal. So you've got the reflection happening on one hand, and then on the other hand, your thought cloud. And that thought cloud is nothing more than your commentary about how you feel about that reflection in that given moment in time. Well, the exact same thing happens when it comes to money. And just like you look in the mirror every day, you're probably going to your wallet in some shape or form every day as well, whether it's to get your cash, use your debit card, your credit card, or go online to do some sort of banking or purchase transaction. Your becomes reflective tool, if you will. And what is happening every single time you go into your wallet is the financial transaction that's prompting that. So this other thought cloud. And in that thought cloud are your beliefs about money, your behavior with it, your philosophy with it. It's a concatenation of all of the choices that you've ever made, past and current, the consequences of those choices. How do you feel about those choices? Also in that thought cloud are your fears, your concerns, the things that might wake you up in the middle of the night sometimes, and not to be all doom and gloom, but also the things that excite you, that bring you joy, and the things that make you say, yes, this is what I want money to do for me. All of that is happening every single time you go into your wallet. So I wanted to just kind of frame my response, because the whole idea of how do you get beyond living paycheck to paycheck really stems in when you examine what's going on every single time you make a particular financial decision or make a choice. So what are some of the tips that you can do to address how do you move beyond living paycheck to paycheck? Is you've got to examine whether or not your expenses are something that you can reduce. Seems obvious, but sometimes that's the thing that's overlooked. Or do you need to generate more revenue? Do you need to get a second job? Do you need to have a higher salary? If you have a business, do you need to increase the prices that you're charging? Do you need to increase the number of clients that you have? It seems so simple. And yet at the end of the day, it's not as easy to do, because we don't often take a step back and ask what's really going on. We're in the moment, we're realizing that we're living paycheck to paycheck, and we react to let me fix this, as opposed to kind of taking a step back and figuring out what is the real problem here that I need to address.
So we do have one question, it looks like, and they're asking in terms of what's the framework? How do you build the framework around changing your mindset? What's the first thing you should start doing first?
So my framework is all centered. So my framework is centered around a pivotal exercise that I do with every coaching client, whether it's an individual or a couple, and I also use it in every single workshop. And it's called the financial wheel. And the financial wheel represents very broadly the 4 things that any of us can do with our money, regardless of how much income we earn, regardless of what our wealth is. And so what I would invite people to do, again, as they're listening live or listening to the replay, is take out a piece of paper, draw a circle as large as you possibly can, and we're going to go around the framework, and we're going to go around the financial wheel. So take out a piece of paper.
Can I start that? Can I draw a circle?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
So a circle.
So you're going to draw a circle, and then what you're going to do is you're going to divide the inside of that circle into 4 sections. So you'll have a vertical line and a horizontal line.
Got it.
So you'll have 4 quadrants.
Okay, so we got.
And then this is.
Can people see that? Okay, so kind of like that, you'll do your circle. Is that right? Is that right, Jacquette?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay,
You've got 4 quadrants. Okay. So this is how you're going to label it. The upper left-hand quadrant is earn. The upper right-hand quadrant is save.
Okay.
Beneath save is invest. And then in the box that remains, spend. So if you're looking at your financial wheel as if it were a watch, you basically have earn between 9 and 12, save between 12 and 3, invest between 3 and 6, and spend between 6 and 9. That's what it should look like.
Okay, and Jacqueline in Atlanta says she is drawing her circle right now.
Awesome. I'm really happy to hear that.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
All right.
All right. So what we're gonna do is go through a series of questions in each of those quadrants, but we're going to begin with save. And my first question here, there are 3 questions here, actually 4 questions. My first question here is, if you could suspend what is real, right? And you could put down whatever number you wanted, how much would you want to save in the next 30 days? What's that number? How much do you want to save in the next 30 days is one question. The second question is, how much do you want to say you have saved this year?
Okay.
The third question is, how much do you want to save over the course of your lifetime? What's that number? And then once you have a number written down for each of those different time periods, why? Why are those numbers important to you? Because even though I did ask you to suspend reality and to, dream big and to push yourself, those numbers didn't just really come out of nowhere. So again, next 30 days, by the end of the year, over the course of your lifetime, and then why? That's save. Now, when we go to invest, most often when you think about investing, what you're thinking about are investing in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or real estate. Perfect. Write that down. But what I'd also want you to write down are 2 other things. Who are the people in your life that you want to say that you are supporting and investing in? And then what are the causes that you also want to say that you are supporting and investing in? So in addition to stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and real estate, or what I call the usual suspects, what else would you want to invest in terms of the people that are important to you in your life, and then as well the causes? Oh, I don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I hear you.
Yeah. Okay, good. I was saying that I like the whole why, because I think once I got down to saving over the lifetime, what do I want to save over my lifetime? And then why do I want to save that? For me, it's a trigger, specifically, what does that mean, or what does it look like? And how it's really helping me to define why is that number that important, and what does that mean in terms of spending, saving at that stage, and really kind of looking at I want to position myself to be able to save that much. So I like how thought-provoking that was for me. I'm not quite sure if that, how that was for some of the other viewers. Please share. But that's what triggered it for me to start thinking about.
Awesome. So now we've done save and we've just finished invest. So now let's go to spend. Okay. And think about, have you ever said, if I had more money, I would? I know I raised my hand.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. So this is really all about lifestyle. If you had a magic wand and money were no longer an issue, what would be different? Where would you go? What would you do? What would you buy? What would be different about your lifestyle if money were not an issue?
Okay. So when you think about that, are you wanting someone to think more about their spending habits and how, or actually how they would actually, before they think about spending their money, how cautious would they be? I mean, kind of break that down a little bit more.
No, I really want you to think about the idea that there are certain things that you are not doing because money plays a factor in that. And so if money were not an issue, what would be different? So how would your life be different? And going back to those three things, what would you do? Where would you go? And what would you buy? Because those very broadly represent your lifestyle. And so how would your lifestyle be different if you had the money that you really want that you don't have right now? Because the presumption is that there are things that you are not doing. There are things that you are not experiencing because money plays a factor in that. So what would those things be?
Okay. And so with asking those questions, is it supposed to open up the thought process to think about, how can I make that type of money to be able to experience the things that I want to experience that it may take money to do?
Well, you are getting ahead, but yes. So let's do the last quadrant. So the last quadrant is earn. And so with earn, we're going to look at the same four questions and time period as we did for save. So with earn, the idea is if you work for somebody else and you could go in tomorrow and renegotiate your compensation package, or if you have a business and you could go in tomorrow and renegotiate your price points, etc., what would be different? So what would you want to earn over the next 30 days? What would you want to earn by the end of this year? What would you want to earn over the course of your lifetime? And then again, why?
Well, I like that.
Now, let me ask you this, Sherry. Did you notice the difference between how we drew the financial wheel and then how we went about actually asking some questions about it?
Yeah,
You're shaking your head. So what did you notice? I see you shaking your head. What did you notice?
I mean, I just kind of noticed how you started with save, and then you kind of went around to back up to earn. Instead of going earn and then save, then spend or invest, you did it the opposite direction. And so I like this. It was like getting the mind, and tell me if I'm on the right track, but getting the mindset ready to save first, spend, invest, earn. Am I on the right track?
Well, you're on the right track, but here's why I did that. And it is intentional. It wasn't accidental.
Okay.
So it's intentional because most of us have been conditioned that we live our lives and we make the decision about what we're going to save, how we're going to invest it, and how we're going to spend it based upon what we earn. I call that living by default. And that's what most of us have been conditioned to live by. Like that's the way of living that we've been accustomed to doing. By inviting you to first ask yourself, well, what do I want to save? How do I want to invest it? What's the lifestyle that I want to live? Mm-hmm. And then figuring out, well, what do I need to earn to make this happen? That's called living by design. And it's a subtle difference, but it's really, really significant because think about the kinds of decisions that you'll need to make in terms of how you negotiate, in terms of how you lead yourself, lead others, If the question is more, if this is what I want to do with my money, if this is how much I want to save and why that number is important to me, if this is how I want to invest it and why investing it in this way is important to me, if this is the lifestyle that I want, then what do I need to earn to make that happen? That's a much more powerful way of living than saying, this is what someone told me that I could earn. And from that, I'm going to make these decisions. It's subtle, but it is so significant. And look, I am not 100% in by design either. I don't know anybody that, well, maybe a few people, but I think it's a work in progress for all of us. But what a powerful work in progress to be in, to be able to say, I don't want to do X because that's not helping me do these other three things, or I will do X because that will help me do these other three things. And then the other thing that I want to just make sure that people walk away with on this is that it helps you to be a lot clearer. One of the reasons that I ask people to come up with a number for save is because you have no idea how many coaching clients will come to me and they'll say, my goal is to save more. And I'm like, yeah, and you know, great, you want to save more, but it's even better if you said to me, Jacquette, I want to save $10,000 in the next 4 months. We can work on a plan to make that happen. And we can put together benchmarks and milestones to measure our progress, but it's really, really hard to measure and benchmark, I want to save more. What do you do with that? So it really helps to help you identify how much are you living by default versus by design? Where do you need to be clear where you are abstract? And where are you being perhaps a little bit too reactive when you really ought to be a little bit more proactive?
So I love the living by design, and you're absolutely right when we talk about how powerful that is in terms of, because it's like you're controlling your money, so your money, you're controlling you. And it goes back,
totally.
and tell me if I'm right, because this is great learning stuff for me as well, is that it also, you're dictating this wheel in terms of, you know, what you want to see happen in your 30 days, you know, in your lifetime or in a year. And how, you know, what you're, you know, controlling that process to make this happen. So I love this. For those of you who are, please, if you're not getting the circle, please do your circle. This is awesome stuff here that she's sharing with us about the circle. And there was something you said that just triggered me to ask another question. And I know that it's probably in some of the information that we shared on the website too, in reference to the emotion pieces of it. But what about, I guess, not the decision-making process, but I guess the money strengths, you know, your money strengths, your style, and your personality. How do you recognize, now this is kind of my own personal question, how do you recognize these strengths when you start to try to do this your money wheel? What things can you do to recognize what your strength is, your personality, or your style, and where you may need to adjust those things to make sure that you're working in this wheel and changing your mindset and living by design?
So there are a couple of layers to your question. The first layer, I would say, is to take a look at all of the different quadrants: earn, save, invest, and spend. And the first question to yourself ought to be, where am I the strongest? Am I strong at earning? Am I strong at saving? Am I strong at investing? Or am I strong at spending wisely? So that's the first thing. Identify where you're strong just in terms of overall one of those four quadrants. And then break it down and ask, am I strong in terms of paying my bills on time? Am I strong in terms of having a decent debt to, you know, I call it debt to equity, but, you know, debt to liability, or not debt to liability. I'm going to just use my own terms, debt to equity ratio. Am I strong at, you know, being disciplined with setting a savings target and making sure that I actually actually meet that target or meet that goal? Am I strong at saying, I'm not going to spend money here, but I'll spend it there? Like, am I strong at having policies and then actually following through? The reason I think it's so important to recognize what you are strong in is far too often all we hear about are what you were doing wrong when it comes to money. And I think it's just like anything else, even when it comes to your career, it is a heck of a lot easier to strengthen your strengths than to expend the energy, quote unquote, improving your weakness.
Right.
Because when you do that, you're not really operating from your sense of power, from your core of power. So think about, what do you do well with money? And I actually encourage people to do a SWOT analysis. And funny, I wrote about this in a not too distant blog post earlier this year. And someone actually did their SWOT analysis and they sent it to me. And so for anyone for whom, you know, that term is new to them, a SWOT analysis is nothing more than a matrix that looks at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And it's not that you shouldn't be aware of your weaknesses, because you should be aware of them. But my message, and as well as other people's messages, is that it's far better to focus on how to improve your strengths and how do you use your strengths as a way of offsetting the vulnerabilities that your weakness, quote unquote, might expose. So do a SWOT analysis and have that SWOT analysis be not just what you do well in terms of how you manage your money, but in terms of what you do in terms of managing your life. Like, give yourself credit for what you do well. Acknowledge some of the things where you need to grow, because we all need to grow in some areas. And then recognize what your threats are and what those opportunities are. So do a SWOT analysis to really hone in on that. And there was another question that you had that now I forgot.
You actually tied it up well together. You know, for all those together with, you know, with the wheel. And I think that the one thing that keeps coming into my mind is the 30 year and the lifetime and the why. I keep asking myself, why, you know, are these goals important? And really giving a lot more deeper thought into how, you know, I'm going to make that happen. And I remember specifically.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the great thing about, I think, this exercise is that, one, if you don't treat it as you're doing this right now, you're never going to go back and look at it, and you treat it as something that you revisit with some frequency, I think it can give you a lot of feedback, because I think money is always talking to us, letting us know what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. And reminding us that it needs our direction if we want it to work for us in a particular way. So with the financial wheel, you can get a sense of, if you have a strategy, how strategic are you being? Or if you don't have a strategy, that you need to get one. It also reveals to you where you need to be a little bit more discerning. And I think for probably all of us that are listening to this, where the discerning piece comes in is from the standpoint of, where do we need to say no more often? I think it also can help us figure out, going back to the whole discipline thing, you know, where are we disciplined and where can we use a little bit more improvement? And then also creative thinking, like, where do we need to think a little bit more out of the box? Where do we need to get out of our own way and say, that's what I used to do, but that's not generating the results that I want. So maybe I need to approach this a bit differently.
So let's talk about, if you have someone who, if they're making enough money that they can pay all of their bills, right? And they're paying them on time, they're being disciplined with that, but maybe they're not saving. And then now they're in a situation where they're not making enough money to pay those bills, where they're disciplined when they have enough money, but they're not disciplined enough when they made where it's limited. What's the difference in the personality challenges in terms of how you view money when it's like that? So if you're making enough, you're paying the bills on time and all that, and you may be spending a little extra, but for some people, if they're not making as much, they're still able to pay their bills because they're more disciplined with the money that they have and the resources. What's the difference in the personalities with that? Or how can you identify that you need to change some things in terms of how you view it? I hope I just made sense what I just said.
Well, here's what I heard, and you can tell me if what I heard is what you were saying. At the end of the day, I think people who have fewer resources, they are very aware of what's going on with their money. Mm-hmm. And they are very aware of it because they have to be. I think it is those that have more. If you have more, you don't necessarily know where your areas of vulnerabilities are. And what your question actually leads to is this idea that if you believe somehow that when you have more, you're going to do something differently than what you are doing with what you have right now, please don't have that thought after tonight. Because the truth of the matter is, and I'm just using these numbers for simplicity's sake, the truth of the matter is what you do with $1 is exactly what you will do when you have 10, what you will do when you have 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million. The fact that you're adding more zeros does not mean that you're automatically going to wake up one day when you have those extra zeros and you're going to do something differently with your money. You're not. It's just that as you get more of those zeros, you're able to mask the consequences of when you're not doing what's best for you with your money. So people that are, really trying to rub those two nickels together, they're hyper aware of how much they have and how much they need to stretch it. Those that have a little bit more wiggle room, if they're not taking as best advantage as they could of what they have, it just simply means that they've got more of a cushion for that not to be revealed to them and for it not to have a negative impact on them. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it does answer my question, but don't you think it's kind of a false sense of cushion if their behavior doesn't in alignment with kind of thinking about this wheel? You know what I mean? Am I thinking about this the right way?
Yeah, but I think I'm hearing a conflation of issues though, because one is I am not spending my money wisely, but I have such a cushion that I don't really feel the ramifications of it. And then another is I only have this amount and I need to be hyper vigilant about what I'm doing with it. So there are really two different scenarios that you've described. Does that make sense?
Yes. Now, based on your expertise, where should this person think about actually being? Where should they be in terms of their behavior and changing their thought process around money and developing certain strengths to improve on their financial situation, even if they have enough money and have a cushion, but maybe still not be maybe a little bit more frivolous in specific areas?
Well, I think everybody can benefit from tracking. And when I recommend to people that they track their money, it's not for the purposes of creating a budget, because I think most people do that incorrectly and they don't really benefit from that. But tracking your money so that you can have a better understanding of what are your patterns of behavior. And not only your patterns of behavior, but what's the pattern of your cash flow? When is the money coming in? When is it going out? Do you spend more money at the end of the month, at the beginning of the month, in the middle of the month? Do you spend more money when you're feeling happy, or do you spend more money when you're feeling sad? Tracking your money for me includes not just knowing what you purchased, how much it costs, but also when did you buy it? So again, you can see the time frame. Right. If it was something that you needed or wanted, and how were you feeling? And the idea is to capture all of that data and do it in such a way that you are completely objective, like you're having an out-of-body experience and you're just, you're a scientist collecting data. That's really how you should engage in a tracking exercise, and then go back and look at what you discover from that exercise. So I tell people, I would love it if everybody tracked all the time. But if that's not the case, at a minimum, track for 30 days. Ideally, track for 90 days, because then you will really see the pattern of your behavior with money. And anybody could benefit from that, whether it's the person, as you described, that's putting two nickels together and trying to, make it work, or the person that has a little bit more of a cushion. And from that, you can be able to determine, well, how do I behave with money and what are my triggers? So it's tracking and then really understanding also what are your triggers? Why do you do what you do?
So this explains what you mean by, rely less on information and more on insight to make the decision.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. Totally. Because the problem with, I think, one, the traditional approach to personal finance, and I think two, what presents a comfort level for folks is that they think it's just a math issue, because what are you doing? You're adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and that's one aspect of it. But the other piece is really understanding, why do you do what you do? And there are so many things that influence that, right? You've got your family background. What did you witness growing up when it came to money? Of that, what have you intentionally inherited? What have you intentionally rejected? Or what have you rejected? You thought you rejected, I should say, but you really haven't. It's just looking very differently. What are you carrying around in terms of your own baggage? What beliefs do you have about money, and how have your own experiences shaped or modified those beliefs? What expectations do you have? Like, do you even expect that you can earn a lot? And how did your family influence that expectation? What's going on from a cultural, a social, and a political standpoint? How does that also influence what you think is possible, what you think you should or should not do? So that's why I say it's not just about information, because if it were just about information, we wouldn't even need to have this call, because you could just go to Google, you could get your how-to, and you'd be good to go. But how many times have you heard the same thing? Spend less than you earn, get out of debt, create a budget. If it were just those things that you needed to do, you would do it and you would always be successful. But if that's not the case, as it is for a lot of folks, there must be something else going on. And that's the piece that you really need to spend more time exploring. And that's where the insight piece comes into play.
Well, I'm tweeting out now. Have you created your financial wheel? I think it's important that they know that, and we're going to make sure we need to get that out there. Have you created your financial wheel? So one of the things that I like this, because I think you're absolutely right. If it was that simple, then you would be able to just pretty much, like you said, find what you need, and you don't have to worry about that. But I like the part where the insight part, the emotions and monitoring your behavior, of being aware of your behavior around these decisions. So let me ask you a question. When it comes to young professionals who are starting out, and I'm sure you've had this question before. I know we do have some young professionals who are watching tonight. What is some of the advice you can give them in reference to them doing the wheel? And from a perspective of their age, starting out, tracking or using your method to really create a good financial, behavior for themselves.
Yeah. So, what I would say is this: if you did the wheel and you really did it in terms of thinking big, right, and not confining your responses to what is currently happening, there inevitably is going to be a gap. There's going to be a gap between where you are and where you want to be. And in my mind, that gap is a good thing. Some people freak out about it. And what I say to folks is that gap is really an invitation. And it goes back to before, an invitation to tighten up your strategy, to figure out where you need to be more discerning, to figure out where you need to have more discipline, and where you might need to, think more creatively. But let me give you 4 really specific things that people can do to help close that gap. And that ties into more specifically your question around habits. We talked about one already, which was to track your money. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend that. And again, this goes back to, it's not about the information, it's about the insight, from the standpoint of, don't get caught up in how you track it, You can do pen and paper. You can date myself. You can do an Excel spreadsheet. You can use your app on your phone. You can use a software package on your laptop. Don't get caught up in the tool that you use. Just do it. So the first thing would be to track your money.
Okay.
The second would be to have some money rules. And when I say have money rules, what I'm talking about is have some boundaries around what you will do or won't do with your cash, your debit card, your credit card, and your debt, and investing as well. And so to give a good example, a concrete example, as you know, I live in Brooklyn, and we have a number of like neighborhood restaurants, some of which don't take cards. I will not go to a restaurant that doesn't take cards and that isn't nearby my bank, because I am not going to pay a fee to use the ATM machine that you have in your establishment simply because you don't want to pay the fee, the merchant fee. And a part of that is a principle thing, right? I have a business. I accept credit cards as a matter of convenience for my clients. I pay the fee for that. And right. I feel like if I'm at your restaurant, you should pay the fee too. Like I shouldn't have to pay double. So there's a principle there thing for me. But the whole idea is you need to have some rules around how you'll spend your cash. That's an example. Another example, or I should say how you use your debit card. Another example would be have a rule around what kind of debt will you go into. I'm not one that will tell you that all debt is bad. And I know that many of the people on the call are women, and some are women business owners. As women business owners, one of our challenges is we're so afraid of debt that we don't use it to leverage the growth of our companies. And so I'm not going to tell you don't take on debt. But what I will say is one of your rules ought to be clear about the debt that you're going to take on and to know what your game plan is going to be for getting out of that debt. So don't have this, I'm going to avoid debt at all costs, but have a game plan in place that says, I'm taking on X amount of debt. I'm doing it for this reason, and this is my game plan for how I'm going to get out, and this is when I'm going to start implementing that game plan. So that would be another example. So the first, I call it, smart money habits. So the first one would be to track your money. The second one would be to have money rules. The third one would be to let your goals drive your money decisions.
Okay.
And there are two aspects there. Part of the issue is a lot of people don't write down their goals. Mm-hmm. The problem with that, there are many problems with that, but one of the problems with that is that 99.9% of every financial goal that you will have a financial component to it. But if you don't write down the goal, you have no way of knowing what that financial element is. Why that is important is because that financial element comes from the money that you have right now, the choices that you're making right now, not from the money that you anticipate getting in the future, whether that's a bonus, whether that's a raise, or whether that's a new client. So the goals that you have, financing those goals come from the money that you have right now. But if you don't know what the financial component is to your goal, you have no idea of what trade-offs you need to make in order to begin to fund that particular goal. And then the fourth, and there are obviously many more that we could go into, but I think if you could only do four things, these would be the four things. And then the fourth thing I've alluded to already as well, I would say to prioritize systems over tools and behavior over outcomes. And what I mean by that specifically is, as I said before, when it comes, like I use tracking as an example. The system is that you track. The system is you do a purchase, you get a receipt, and somewhere you catalog what was going on there. The tool could be pen and paper. It could be on your computer. It could be a smartphone app. And let me just digress for a moment. What I find so interesting is that since 2008, when we had the Great Recession, $9 billion has been spent on what we call fintech. And that is financial applications to help you manage some aspect of your money. And all of that has enabled people to walk around with everything that they could possibly need to know about their money. And yet the interesting thing is that access and that information hasn't led to more insight. So something to think about.
Sometimes it leads to more, sometimes it can lead to more anxiety.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah, totally. But yeah. Systematize your, prioritize your systems, I should say, over your tools. And when I talk about prioritize your behavior over outcomes, well, look, we all make plans. We all have goals. We all do the best that we can possibly do to make those things happen. And sometimes life just throws us a monkey wrench and just, stuff goes haywire.
Right.
So you don't always have control over the specific outcome, but you do have control over the process that leads to it. You do have control over the choices that can lead to the most optimal outcome. So if you don't get the result that you want, use that more from the standpoint of as feedback in terms of what might you want to change about the process and what about your behavior needs to change to make that process better for you the next time. Then when you get back on the proverbial horse and you start all over again, because sometimes that's what we have to do.
Okay, I tweeted that out about you creating systems and processes for your money and also creating some money rules. I tweeted those out.
Yeah,
for people.
Totally.
Yeah, they need to know that. I think the money rules for me, I never thought about it as far as being money rules. And, and I think this is great stuff because you create these career goals for yourself, but do you thinking about creating rules around your money, and guidelines for that. So I think this is some great information in terms of that. So let me ask you a question about about identifying your style. What are are there specific different styles? Are there really some actual names that there are for people who have different spending styles or just a money style overall? Do you have specific names for any of those?
I don't. There are archetypes, if you will, for people and how they approach their money. Some might call you the avoider or the spender. But I don't have one. But here's what I would say that can help you identify your style objectively is to observe yourself. Observe yourself and take notes when you're making a decision, when you feel anxious about a financial decision, when you're talking about money with other people, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's colleagues, like really just take a moment. And even if you can't write it down in that moment, I am a huge Evernote fan. Have an Evernote note or notebook where you can actually jot down some of the things that you observe to really understand what is your style and let that be something that you're able to discover organically, as opposed to, even if I had an archetype, even if I said to you that, well, there are 4 different archetypes and these are the different traits that these archetypes represent, that could be helpful. But I think what would be even more helpful is if you just observe, how do you feel and what do you do when you're making financial decisions, or when you're confronted with a financial problem, or when you have a financial desire and you're like, how am I going to make this work? Like, jot down what is coming up for you, and that will help to give you some insight as to how you particularly, because style is really nothing more than how you approach something, right? It's just like dressing.
Yeah.
How you dress, how you choose to present yourself, that's your style. So in a very similar way, it's the same thing with money. Like, how do you show up for your money?
So I guess another question I may have too is that, so what is something critical that you want our viewers to know tonight about money overall? I know we talked about style and personality, money rules, tracking your money, this great financial wheel that everybody needs to know about. And then where can they, let's talk about, let's give them the link to where they can find this financial wheel on your website. And we're also going to share how they can find out about you in terms of your website and your Twitter and all that good stuff.
Sure. So I think the major takeaway that I would love for people to walk away with is really understanding that far too many of us think that money happens to us, and we abdicate our power to money, as opposed to saying, no, wait a minute. Money is an awesome tool, but I'm the one that's in the driver's seat. And at the end of the day, you're always in the front. But the question is, are you in the front leading, or are you in the front being pushed by? Are you in the front being pushed by your circumstances, or are you in the front proactively making choices? So if there's just one takeaway, it would be to remember that money doesn't happen to you, or you can choose, let me put it that way, you can choose not to let money happen to you. And a way of making that choice for you to be the leader in your life is to get to know what your money strengths are, get to know what your money style is, get to know what your money personality is. And you can extract all of that from doing your financial wheel exercise, because the answers that you jot down and when you think about how you go about making decisions, all of that will come to you in time. And that may sound all woo-woo and all that, but it's not just woo-woo. There is a very practical element to it. But you've got to integrate, I think, in order to get the best results, you've got to integrate the psychology and the emotions of money with the numbers. And that's a way of doing it. And then I think if I could add one more thing, it would be to don't let this be the thing where you're like, oh, this was a great conversation, but then you never go back to looking at your financial wheel again. So it's just like when you go to a workshop, you go to a conference, you're all excited, you take notes, but then you never look at that notebook again. Well, then this is not doing you any good, right?
Right.
And the thing about it is your life is not static. So whatever you wrote down tonight about the financial wheel, it may not change materially in 6 months, but it might change materially in a year. It might change materially in 16 months or 18 months. So have it be the kind of thing where you're constantly revisiting it, you're constantly editing it, and you're constantly discovering what's up with you and your money. Yeah.
So
it's just like any other relationship.
I mean, that's true. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely neat. It's like a whole, like you said, it's a whole nother relationship in addition to the other things that you have. So some takeaways, viewers. One, your financial wheel. We're going to have Jacquette's going to actually go in and tell us where you can, where she can find out how to do your financial wheel. And then takeaways from that I have here is 4 things that she shared, which is track your money, have money rules. And then, of course, you want to look at, looking at how you track your money goals, right?
Well, yeah, I said, let your goals drive your decisions. And if I could just amplify that, one other way that becomes important is when it comes to investing, you never want to put the money that you are investing for a goal that's less than 5 years, so 0 to 5 years, in the stock market. So to be a little bit more concrete, if you have a goal to buy a home and you want to do that within the next 5 years, the money that you are setting aside and saving for the down payment, that money should never, ever be in the stock market. Because while the stock market is probably one of the best places for your money to be, it's not one of the best places for it to be if you're looking at needing it within 5 years. Because what if we have a crash in that 5-year time frame? Then you have lost some value, if not all of the value of the money that you've been setting aside. So for something like that, you want to be liquid. So you want to make sure that you put that either in a savings account, a money market account, or a CD, even though I say that cautiously, or a CD, but you don't want to put that in the stock market. So the other aspect of letting your goals drive your money decision is, what's the time horizon for your goals and what makes the most sense in terms of how do you actually invest the money that you are setting aside for those goals.
Awesome. I like that. And that's great because I know you talked briefly about that on the Real Career Talk call. A couple weeks ago. Yeah, you did. So it's great that you reiterated that because especially for all of you who are young and you're looking at purchasing a home, this is fantastic, like, gold advice that the Jacquette is giving in reference to that. So some great tips. Now, Jacquette, do you have anything that's coming up? Webinars that are coming up soon? Any workshops going on?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so two things. To spend a little bit more time with the financial wheel, you can go to my site, jacquettetimmons.com/wheel, and then you'll be able to download it. It's free. It won't take you really more than probably 20 minutes to do, but I would highly encourage you to do it, and then you'll always have the MP3 and you can go back to it. And if you are in a relationship, I would highly recommend that you do the exercise separately, but then come together to talk about what are your answers to those respective quadrants. You'll be totally surprised by what you didn't know you didn't know. So that's one thing. JacquetteTimmons.com/wheel. That's where you can get the financial wheel exercise and download it. The other thing is on the 20th, that's a Wednesday. On the 20th, I'm hosting one of our financial intimacy hours, which I do about 9 times a year. And I interview a different subject matter expert. And this past, for April, I interviewed a cultural anthropologist, and we talked about how the contents of your purse can reveal a lot about who you are and how you are in the world. And I'm following up on that with a stylist, and then someone who is actually, I didn't even know you could have this, but they have a PhD in image and how we're going to explore the role between money and how does that shape your image? How does that shape the clothes that you buy and the presence that you want to convey? So it'll be an interesting conversation. So that's on the 20th of
awesome. Okay,
May.
I just want to talk about that for just a moment because that is fantastic. I wish that this is now, Jacquette. This is where you can be utilizing Periscope, so so your viewers can watch it.
Yeah, as my cat just walks right in front of me.
I love it. That's okay. My dog barked earlier, so we're good. Your cat can My dog is barking. We're good now.
Oh my God.
No, but I think this is a good way for you to use Periscope, so viewers who are not there in your New York, they're not there in New York can actually watch. Just hint. Just want to say that.
Well, you'll have to bring me up to speed. I'm a little Luddite on certain things. That would be one of them.
No, I think that's an awesome event to be able to share. I think I didn't even know you could get a PhD in image. That is fantastic. So yes. I love the creative things that you're. And there your kitty is. Hi, kitty.
His name is Nook. Nook is getting in on the conversation.
Nook, yes, we've got you, Nook. We're gonna have to go ahead and tweet you out too. We got to get you out there. So I like the concept of the event coming up. So that's on May 20th, right? So you can go to its website to RSVP for those of you who are local in the New York City area. If you're going to be in the area,
well, that's actually virtual. So if you
virtual, great,
it's virtual. So if you actually go and get the financial wheel, you'll also get on our list, and then you'll get notified that way. Or you can follow me on Twitter at JACQM Timmons, and we'll be able to stay in touch that way.
I know some people have tweeted out some things, and also retweeted from some stuff that I've been tweeting out.
Oh, awesome! Okay.
So good. So guys, where you can find that. Please go to her website and please, upload or download the financial wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to, and I'm going to start be using it for my own. I think it'd be good for me to look at it from an entrepreneur standpoint, since this is all new for me, to be able to do.
Totally.
Be some,
and in regards to that, the other thing that we as entrepreneurs need to be mindful of is what we do with our personal money is how we will approach our business's money. So that's something to be mindful of, because you don't just, cut yourself in half and say, well, I'm going to do this with my personal money and do this with my business's money. You're who you are. So if you've got habits that are not serving you well personally, those habits are not going to serve you well when it comes to business also.
That's a great insight to share, for those of you who may think so. That is where you need to go in and not necessarily rely on the information, like you said, but start to think about insight more of your decisions when you make that transition. So that's very good stuff. Hey, Nick.
Oh God!
Look, it's like I am getting my airtime. Okay.
Exactly.
We do have a question from someone, Chantel Dobbins, and she actually messaged. Let's see what she messaged here, real quick while we open it up. She said, "Are there any kind of mobile tracking apps that you can recommend?"
There's Mint. There's Spendee, Spendee. Oh God, what's the third one? Hold on a second. Let me see if I can bring up the third one real quickly. But off the top of my head, those are the top two. Mint.com, which you probably have heard of, and then Spendee, Spendee.
Spendee.
So it's just like spend, but then add 2 E's on the end.
Okay. All right. Now, what about, and I know that I think there's another one out there too that's called, is it Page, or it used to be something called something else. I don't know what that is. What about for now, here's another question. I guess this is kind of on a roll now. They just messaged this one too. They're saying, what about for entrepreneurs? Can they use the same apps, or are there different specific money mobile tracking apps that can be used?
Yeah, see, that's a tricky thing. So I actually use Quicken. I use Quicken Deluxe. I've been using Quicken since 1995, so I will not switch. And Quicken has a mobile version that you can look into. So I don't know of any other platform that allows you to do both in a single app, other than Quicken. And that's why I am not switching ever. So when I recommend like Mint or recommend Spendee, it is because I've needed to research and find alternatives for my clients, and they've used them, but I can't speak to the experience as a user directly, other than for Quicken Deluxe, which allows me to see both personal and business. And I can see it on my laptop, and I can also see it on my phone.
Awesome. Well, I think the mobile app, Chantel, you're on a roll. Here's another question. Now someone's asking about mobile apps for investments.
Oh my God, you've got a lot of options there. You've got Betterment. You've got, now that I say you've got a lot of options, I'm like, oh, what else? You've got Betterment. You've got Wealthfront. You also have LearnVest, which I'm sure probably a lot of people have thought about. And I would at least explore all of those. And what I would say for everyone is, before you commit, you want to do a couple of things. You want to spend a little bit of time on the website to make sure that you feel comfortable with it. And you would also want to call their 800 support number to see if you feel confident in whomever answers the call, because that is going to greatly influence your experience if you have a problem.
That's a great idea. That's an awesome, great idea, to be comfortable with that level of customer service you receive before you start that process. Totally. Very good question to ask. Out the gate. That's a really good one. Okay, it look like, I guess once they just trickled in from those questions about
That's awesome. Well, I'm just looking through to see if I can find Um, oh, another investing app is called Acorn.
Okay. So Acorn, you guys, that's another one.
Yeah, that's all I have right now.
Okay, good. I think those are some good ones that you shared that they can quicken for entrepreneurs, spending and mint for personal budgeting. And then the last one, look at my short-term memory. You just said it, and here I am forgetting already. Short-term memory, I tell you, it's awful.
Oh, I said Betterment, Wealthfront, LearnVest, and then another one would be Smarty Pig.
Oh, okay. Now I have heard of LearnVest. So yeah, I have heard of them. They they blog and things like that, don't they? Don't they have blogging and things like that? The financial blogs that you can read. So that's a pretty good one. Look like we've got someone who's trying to type a question in now. So oh, okay. She says Chantel's asking investments. Do you recommend Scottrade to do investments?
Okay, so just full disclosure, I use Scottrade. They are one of my brokerage. I have an account there, so full disclosure there. I guess what I need to know from her is, what is she looking to do? Is she looking to buy stocks? Is she looking to roll over an IRA? Is she going to be trading, or is it really just to hold her account? That would help me to answer that a little bit better.
Okay, Chantel, she's asking which ones you need now. It's your time to get your question answered. Yeah, let us know which one so she can really answer your question better in terms of what are you looking to do with Scottrade specifically. So if you can do that, that'll help her to answer your question better. All right, so she hasn't responded yet. Okay, good.
Okay. So let me just say this then. Given that I don't know exactly what she means, is it good? I would say the same thing as I said for the apps. Any brokerage firm that you're interested in doing business, go to their website, see how you like the online experience, call the 800 number, make sure that you're asking all of the places that you're calling the same question so that you can really get a sense and compare their answers and how you feel about the experience. At the end of the day, for most of them, the difference is going to come down to not just customer experience, but also price. So I don't know, I don't know what's important to her. Again, I don't know if she's going to be an active trader or if it's, let me just roll over an IRA and open an account here. So those kinds of things need to be factored in as well.
She just said buy stocks. That's what she just asked. She just said buy stocks is what she just put.
So if you're just going to buy stocks, you could look at that. You could also look at TD Ameritrade.
She also put hold accounts too. So both of those.
Yeah. So at that point, it really just comes down to who is going to be a better deal from you from a pricing standpoint, depending upon how often you trade. So look at Scottrade, look at TD Ameritrade, look at Charles Schwab, look at Fidelity. I mean, you've got many, many, many options. So again, I would go to each site, see how you like their user experience. Quite frankly, even though I use Scottrade, I think their website is awful, but that's another thing. Right. And then again, look at their customer service, and then also look at whether or not you need to have access to a brick and mortar. I mean, one of the reasons why I went with Scottrade is that they have a brick and mortar place around the corner from me. So that's a matter of convenience. So look at if that is something that is important to you, that's something to consider as well. Okay.
Well, we've got one question here, and I know we've got to wrap it up because it's 9:09, but we have 513 Miko. Hi, 513 Miko. She has a question, and her question is, what are the top 2-3 things we should look for in a money market account?
In a money market account, the most important thing is the interest rate. What's going to be the interest rate that you're earning on the money market account? So that would be 1, 2, and 3, honestly.
Okay, there you have it, 513 Miko. The interest rate, it's all about the interest rate for the money market account. And so I hope that was able to answer your question. We definitely want to be respectful of Jacquette's time, and it's 9:10. So we want to make sure that we'll take that for the last question of the night. Jacquette, if you can go back in and just give me the Twitter again and your website and just kind of reiterate again your upcoming event on May 20th.
Sure, thank you. So to download the Financial Wheel, it's JacquetteTimmons.com. That's JacquetteTimmons.com/wheel. Download that, do it. If you're in a relationship, do it yourself and do it with your partner and have a lovely conversation. And if you drink, have it over a glass of wine. So that's that. On Twitter, I'm always on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter at JACQM Timmons. And then the event that I mentioned is this month's May's Financial Intimacy Hour. That's May 20th. And that's where we are exploring image and styling. So as you can see, I approach things a little unconventionally.
I love it.
when it comes to money. But my whole thing is that money, it intersects with everything in our lives. And so why not explore all of those different intersections? So.
Well, I love it. I love the approach. Sometimes we need to have those unconventional things. And that's what keeps it stimulating and engaging.
Yeah.
And just not so traditional. So I love it. I absolutely love it. I do. So
awesome.
Let's thank Jacquette for Jacquette. Let's make sure I say for being on our career conversation tonight. For those of you who may be new to Black Careers Network, Jacquette Timmons is one of our BCWN career mentors. So please, you can reach out to her through our mentor coaches and experts page on our website. She has a list of her areas of expertise, and you can ask her a question related based on her expertise. She'll be more than happy to respond to your email. Also, to remember now, you can also follow her on her Twitter, and then, of course, go and download that Financial Wheel. That is hugely important. A couple of BCWN things I want to share with you guys before we wrap up. Next, we're going to be having another career conversation in 2 weeks. And there we're going to be having a special guest also in the New York City area that's going to be talking about mastering your network and ways to do that as well. And then, of course, tune into our career conference, to our Real Career Talk calls that we have every Tuesday at noon. To make sure that you also will be aware of our conference that we have coming up on August 18th in Cincinnati, Ohio. On a Saturday, August 8th from 9 to 4. It is going to be our first conference, and our theme is passion, power, and pursuit. That's our theme for
awesome.
our conference that we're having in August. So just want to be able to share those with you. For those of you who are local here in Cincinnati, please come out and support and attend our BCWN luncheon that we are having on May 20th, which is my mother's birthday at the same day.
Awesome.
Workplace wisdom, and sharing some nuggets in terms of career development and leadership, and some challenges and things that we want to talk about and be open about that we deal with in the workplace as African American women. So please come out locally and participate in our lunch and get some good food and share some great dialogue and networks. I just want to share that with you guys. So any last words for our members and new viewers, Jacquette?
Yeah, the title is Financial Success Doesn't Start in Your Wallet for a reason. And it's to remind us all that it's not just about crunching the numbers, but it is about understanding, again, the psychology and the emotions and your beliefs and your behavior with money. So when it comes to really fine-tuning your success, remember that what makes personal finance personal is you. And you need to define and be clear about what success is. And it doesn't mean it has to be quote unquote perfect, but you need to be in the process of discovery, and that tie your definition and your understanding for yourself of success into what you do with money on a daily basis, as well as how that translates into the bigger picture decisions that you are making. And so it's all about choice, and so choose wisely.
Well, I think that's a great way to and it is about choosing wisely. So I thank you for that last minute nuggets of wisdom from you. So we appreciate that. Last thing I just want to say, for those of you who are viewing for the first time who are not members of BCW Network, please join. You can go to bcwnetwork.com and click on become a member. So we would love to have you be part of our growing network. I want to go ahead and end out the career conversation with the quote, which is one of my favorites, which is know your worth, discover your strength, and work in your purpose. Jacqueline, if you'll stay on when I go ahead and stop the broadcast. And for those of you guys, have a good night. For those of you who will be on the call, I'll talk to you Tuesday. If not, we will see you in 2 weeks on our next career conversation. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.